Taboo Conspiracy uploaded this video a few months ago.
Hello everyone. Today I am going to share a very important video. If you find it as important as I do, then please share it with all of your family and friends. In short, we are going to show with 3D modeling software how sunrises and sunsets prove the Earth is flat.
Now, Taboo's video will use 3D modeling software or CGI to make the claim that this photograph of Mount Rainier casting a shadow up on the clouds is not possible on a globe. Of course, I'm going to present observed evidence showing that Taboo's claims are wrong. And of course, as is typical with Flat Earth videos, Taboo gives absolutely no explanation of how this works on a flat Earth. Now, this is Seattle in 14,410-foot Mount Rainier, and you can clearly see that it dominates the landscape. And this is where I grew up, so I'm quite familiar with this mountain, and I was even lucky enough a couple of times to see this phenomena.
What started all of this was the fact that many globe propagandists have claimed that shadows, like this one of Mount Rainier, are showing an upward shadow of the mountain being cast by a sun that's below the physical horizon. Remember, these globe proponents are claiming the sun is lower than your feet, below the Earth's physical bulge, proving the globe.
Now, when we look at this photograph that Taboo used, it's plainly obvious that the summit of Mount Rainier is well below the clouds. And next thing you're going to hear is Taboo saying something that is absolutely not the truth.
In fact, what you're seeing here is the top of the mountain casting a shadow on clouds that are physically below the peak.
So under what logic is Taboo making the claim that the top of the mountain is casting a shadow on clouds that are physically below the peak? Yes, there are photographs of Mount Rainier where the summit is in the clouds, but here are more photographs where it's plainly obvious that the summit of Rainier is below the clouds. And look at the bottom two photographs. The clouds are not even above the summit of Rainier. So Taboo, to make the claim that the top of the mountain is casting a shadow on clouds that are physically below the peak is blatant dishonesty on your part.
What's ironic is that this mistaken globe evidence just became the death knell for the globe. You can't have an upward mountain shadow and not have a similar upward Earth bulge shadow causing a similar and noticeable effect. A huge thanks to Paul for making the video you're going to see in a few minutes. Paul was inspired to share the truth, and he has stepped up and spent a long time using his expertise to develop this model without any compensation. Paul is an engineer and computer graphics artist who owns a 3D product animation studio. He contacted me a few months back wanting to do some 3D animations for Flat Earth. Paul and I worked together on this production.
Well, I have a question for Paul. If you're an engineer and an expert in graphics that requires an understanding of perspective, then why don't you understand that a flat Earth sun cannot set due to perspective? I don't even need Paul's software to model this, and he knows that if he did model this with his 3D software, he would get the exact same results that I'm going to show you right here. So we're going to start off with a flat Earth sun that is 3,000 miles above the flat Earth. So here we have a distance of 12,000 miles, which would be the approximate distance of the flat Earth from the North Pole to the ice wall. I've added a sun for each of the 1,000-mile distances. And these are the observed angles above the horizon, and it's pretty obvious that even at 12,000 miles, that sun is not even close to the horizon. Now, when I add a protractor, we can see that the sun is about 14 degrees above the horizon, and 14 degrees is confirmed when we use trigonometry to calculate that observed angle of the sun above the horizon. Now we can move that sun down to 1,000 miles and we're still about 4.8 degrees above the horizon at 12,000 miles. And even when we move the sun down to a ridiculously low 200 miles, that sun is still about 1 degree above the horizon. So I'm confused. How can Paul claim to be an engineer and an expert in computer graphics and not understand this?
Now, let's get to Paul's presentation.
Recently, I came across a fascinating set of videos regarding the phenomenon of the apparent shadow casting from Mount Rainier onto some clouds. These videos are from the YouTube channel Taboo Conspiracy. He does some great flat Earth videos, so I was eager to hear what his thoughts were on this phenomenon because on its surface, it appears to indicate a globe model. I mean, if the sun can cast a shadow vertically, that would indicate that it is in fact going below the horizon as the globe model claims. In this video, he showed this image. Basically, if the Earth was a globe and the sun was falling over the horizon as the Earth spins, we should see the globe shadow itself shine up on the clouds. This made sense to me, but I really wanted to test it out. So, with my background as an engineer and a CG artist and my familiarity with computer graphics tools, I set out to mock this up with the intention of seeing if this would actually happen.
This photograph was taken from Tacoma, which is about 30 miles to the south of Seattle. So Paul used these easily identified landmarks so we could find out where the photograph was taken. Then he made this 3D CGI replica for his presentation, and I'll admit he did a very good job on this. He also uses this graphic to show how the shadow interacts with the mountain and the clouds, and this is a very good demonstration of how this works.
For the demonstration purposes, we're removing the sun in this example. This is what happens from a point of view on the Earth. As we zoom in closer, we see our Mount Rainier location and the terminator line interacting with it. And as we zoom even closer, we can see how the terminator line / bulge shadow interacts with the mountain.
So Paul's interactive graphic showing how that shadow moves down the mountain also demonstrates another phenomena that I have seen so many times during an early morning commute to work. Now it is the top of Mount Rainier that is first lit by the rising sun, and of course that sunlit area follows that shadow area down the mountain slope, and then you will see the sun rise above the horizon. This is a sunrise time-lapse taken from Mount Rainier National Park, and you can see that the sun is hitting the top of the mountain and that sunlit area moves down the slope. And if you look to the lower right, you can see that those lower hills are now being lit by the sun. Now you can see from these screenshots that this matches what Paul's model demonstrated. So Taboo and Paul, thanks for the globe evidence.
Now let's add a cloud layer reference line. Where the bulge shadow crosses the cloud reference line, this is where you might expect to see the bulge shadow on the clouds.
So the vertical line is Paul's bulge shadow line, which of course is caused by the horizon. So the cloud layer on the right is lit by the sun, and the cloud layer to the left is in the bulge shadow. Now as this bulge shadow moves past Mount Rainier, the clouds lit by the sun also extend past Mount Rainier. And this would be the area where Rainier casts the shadow on the clouds.
Now we arrive at the scene. It's early morning and the sun is rising in the east. The conditions are perfect to see this rare phenomenon of the mountain casting the shadow on the clouds. Let's see what happens. After working through this experiment, this is another in a long list of proofs that people can do for themselves. Each one of us can go out each morning at sunrise or each evening at sunset and observe this for ourselves. Do you see this shadow across the sky? For me, I've never experienced this visual in my life on this plane, nor have I seen any photos of this phenomenon to date.
Well, Paul, I really have to wonder how many sunrises and sunsets you've watched, because I've seen this phenomena quite a few times. And look at that. Here's a photograph of it with Mount Rainier. This is another photograph. Now this next photo is taken from Spokane, Washington, which is 210 miles to the east of Mount Rainier. Now you can't see Mount Rainier because it's behind that hill in the distance, but you definitely see Rainier's shadow and you definitely see the bulge shadow. Now as for Paul, I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't pay attention to the world around him during sunrise and sunset, but I've definitely provided evidence of that bulge shadow. Now it is also quite telling that Taboo and Paul did not demonstrate how this works on a flat Earth. But let's be honest, if Paul did accurately model this, it would not work. Now I think I provided enough evidence to show that Taboo's video is just full of erroneous assumptions, and most telling is Taboo's blatant dishonesty by making the claim that the top of the mountain is casting a shadow on clouds that are physically below the peak. Of course, the real irony is that Paul's simulation shows exactly how this phenomena works on a globe. So here we have it, another video of flat Earth propaganda.